Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, looking at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hello and welcome back. I'm your hostess, Kristen, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Amber and Cindy.
Hello.
Today, our topic is meditation. So you're either in the camp where you go, ooh, meditation, I like meditation, or you're like, oh gosh,
I don't know how to do that.
I don't like doing that. It's too hard or it's annoying or why are people always talking about it? So we're going to talk about the reality of meditation and what it means to us, how we utilize it, how we also struggle with it. Different types of meditation, because there is no wrong or right way to meditate. And although people will say, do it this way, this is the only way to do it, I disagree with that. So I think that it's all in what you need at the time. So I figured I'd start off with my first experience meditating, and then kind of go into, why I still meditate. So my first memory of ever meditating was probably in Girl Scouts. I was at a lock-in, and I think it was like a wellness lock-in, and we kind of like rotated from activity to activity, and there was this big group activity where we all laid down on the floor, and someone did a guided meditation, and there was like kind of like relaxing music playing, and then the person was telling us to relax our toes, and that one is where you are more like aware of your body. And I think we actually like squeezed our hands together and then relaxed them, because sometimes you don't know how to relax them until you know what it feels like to not be relaxed. And that was like the coolest experience for me, because I almost or probably did fall asleep during that meditation. Probably the whole room fell asleep. That was their trick, I bet, to make us all go to bed at the lock-in. Because I don't really remember much after that. I just remember falling asleep. But I decided that I liked exploring New Age music and guided meditations from there. And I have been listening to guided meditations for many, many years since then. And I also take myself on my own guided meditations with just some calm music. And so that is probably my most favorite type of meditation, because I'm not stuck in my own head, if that makes sense. I'm not stuck trying to force myself to be silent or to be still, because it's actively relaxing your arms and legs versus resisting the urge to move, right? Because in other times when I've researched like different types of meditation, I found myself reading in the literature that you're supposed to silence the mind, and you're supposed to abstain from moving and to ignore
the itch or the
itch, right?
Or the twitch or the
and so I definitely think there's like lots of different schools,
different types of meditation.
Absolutely. And so, and I'm definitely not a meditation expert and what all those different types are, but I think that is the one that everyone kind of fears, or maybe like resists, because it is hard to sit and be calm. What do you guys think?
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about that people fear that kind. That is actually the kind of meditation I try to do. I meditate every morning. I don't meditate for a long period of time, but I just try to clear my mind of anything that, you know, that's in there before I get up and start my day. And sometimes, if I'm having trouble going to sleep at night, I will often just lay in my bed and do that same type of meditation, um, to fall asleep. And it is a challenge. And I used to always say that it was really hard and I couldn't do it. I was not good at meditating. And until somebody reminded me that meditation is not a perfection thing, it's a practice. Meditation is a practice.
It's not a superpower.
It's not a superpower. So it's not like everybody can just do it and shut their mind off or whatever. You practice. The idea is that you're practicing at it. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes to shut things down, to tune things out, or to relax, or whatever. I actually have a hard time with the guided meditations, because they when they're guiding you, they might say, "You're by a flowing river. Now, where do you go from here?" You know, or whatever. And my brain shuts off. I don't know.
Do you have a hard
no.
time imagining that? You have the opposite.
I can imagine sitting by a flowing creek and everything, but just making up what part of the story comes next. You know, once they say, "Now go and do what you're going to do," you know, when I do that, I feel like I'm forcing something. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, I feel the same
I feel like
way.
I'm forcing a story to happen instead of just letting my mind or my inner self tell me. And it's the same thing with, I like a lot of people do meditation that is to get an answer, to listen to their inner voice. And the idea is to close out the outside world, and you're concentrating on a question and you're waiting for those answers to come up. And I don't feel those answers come up. I feel like I'm forcing that thought. Does that make sense?
Have you ever thought about thinking about why you feel that way?
I have not, but like I said, I believe that meditation is a practice, and so even though it is uncomfortable for me to do that kind of meditation, I do continue to try to practice that kind of meditation, because I feel like if I keep practicing at it, I will get better at it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do. And it actually, this goes along with the story. I like to listen to NPR radio. And in particular, I listen to a show that comes on every week called The Moth. And it is storytellers, and they've written these little short essays, and they tell stories about their lives. And I love to listen to these people tell their stories. And one of them was about this woman who was trying to learn to meditate, and she was having trouble with it, and she just couldn't get it. And so she actually went to where the Dalai Lama lives in the Himalayas to study with the Dalai Lama, because she's like,
That's very extreme.
this guy knows how to
Right?
meditate. I
Yeah.
want to meditate, you know? And so she went there, and she, you know, and she learned a lot about meditation, and she had instructors that told her, you need to share what you know with other people. You need to teach. And she was like, I can't teach this. I'm not any good at it, you know, because she sat down, even after all this training, you know, she sat down and was trying to meditate, and she got interrupted, you know, some thought intruded, and she looked at the clock and she was like, oh my gosh, it's only been like 20 seconds or whatever, you know, and that was how short of time, you know, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what she said. But she went on in her story, and this is a great story. You can find it on The Moth, and I'm going to link it on the podcast, because it's a great example of why you can do this. The story that she tells is called "You Can Do Anything You Want to Do," and she was talking about she saw the Dalai Lama speak one time, many years later, after she had been kind of teaching meditation, and she actually saw him make a mistake, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't have to be perfect to do this."
Everyone makes mistakes. Yeah.
Everybody makes mistakes. Even
Well,
the
people
Dalai Lama
overthink
makes
it.
mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, I used to joke and say that I don't meditate, but in reality, it was just me overthinking it, because you think that you have to be in a like dark room, or like
You have to
this.
be sitting in a
You have to
certain
be sitting in a
position
circle,
with
or
your
laying
hands in
down,
a.
or whatever,
Your
doing
hands
yoga.
have to be in this mudra, holding.
Like they do in the movies or whatever.
And you're going and it's nothing. It's really not like that at all. My meditation often involves me sitting on the side of my bed or sitting in my car. If I am having a stressed out day, I can, running around doing errands and I'm stressed out, I will sit in my car and count backwards slowly while I breathe from 50 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
That is a meditation.
I like to meditate a lot when I'm driving, especially, like, or put some like mood music on, or and when I say mood music, I mean like dubstep or something, or screamo or something like that. But no, like, I probably meditate every morning before I go into work. I will drive to work and I will sit in my car and I'll close my eyes and I'll breathe, and then, talk myself out of like turning the car on and leaving. But I'll sit and I'll breathe and I'll like kind of center myself for the day. Then I walk into the building.
It's a great way to start your day. It really is. I do it, like I said, I do it every morning. I get up, I go make my coffee, and while my coffee is brewing, I do a quick meditation. And when I say quick, I literally mean quick. It could be 2 to 5 minutes or even less. And there's different ones that I do. I'm a member of Lifetime Fitness, so their app has some great meditations on it. There's one that's with singing bells, and you're just it's all about learning concentration, and you're concentrating on the sound of the bowls, not bells, bowls. And then there's another one where you're just learning to breathe and concentrating on your breath in and out. Because if you're really, really concentrating on your breathing, you can't be thinking about other things.
Yeah.
And that's the one I do. And then the other one that I do most frequently is counting backwards from 100 or counting backwards from 50. And I do it to the timing of my breath. And so if I'm concentrating on breathing and counting, I can't think of anything else. And now, do other thoughts intrude on that time? Absolutely. I will start thinking something else, and then I'll realize I'm counting up instead of counting down, because that's our natural habit to count up, not backwards. And I usually do that in about the same place every time. I do about from 13 to 12, and then I go 13, and then I go, oh, wait a minute, I just did that. But it's really relaxing to do that. And like I said, I do sometimes meditate before I go to sleep, or if I'm stressed or something like that. It just helps me stay calm and not overreact to something, or, get too emotional about something. It's very comforting to me. Very grounding.
So, last year, Mom and I went on like a kind of like a retreat, a metaphysical retreat. And we took some classes, and one of the things that we did was meditation beads. I forget what those beads are called.
Mala beads.
Thank you. I
Yes.
was like, oh, it's in my head.
Yes.
So like on the mala beads, there's like a certain number. I think it's 108 beads.
I believe that's
on
correct,
the
yes.
necklace.
And there's like a is it a mother bead or grandfather bead or something? There's like a big one that marks. So I can't remember the specifics, but
the
yeah.
start bead.
Yes.
Yeah, and basically, he taught us the chant that you say, or I guess it's like a prayer
A
or
chant.
meditation
Yeah,
chant, that you recite while you're going around the beads. And so you hold each bead between your ring finger and your thumb, and then you meditate going around in each one. And for me, that one has been the hardest for me to do because it's very
108 repetitions.
108
yes.
repetitions. It's very long. It's like over an hour for me.
Yeah.
So, but it is a practice. It's a practice to, for me,
It's like building up
to
your push-ups.
Stay focused on a task for me, because my biggest thing is like I'll start a task and right in the middle of the task I'll go, ooh, I need to go do this, and I literally get up from my desk and go do something else, and it's like self-sabotaging.
That's that ADD thing. Yeah.
And so for me, that's been a practice, just trying to make myself finish, sit through it. You can actually start off with smaller. There's one that has half as many, so it has 54 beads. There's different size beads too. So I found with my finger dexterity, like the bigger beads are actually easier than the smaller ones, because it's kind of hard to navigate to the next bead, because you're kind of like feeding the next bead into the fingers as you go around, and then on top of that, the chant is also challenging because I don't have it memorized either.
Right.
So, but I think that is a really good one to practice as well, because it's more of a focusing chant. Instead of trying to focus on thinking about nothing or doing nothing or trying to imagine something, you're focusing on the same thing.
Well, and that's why the counting backwards works, or the breath work.
Right,
yes.
Right.
Yes.
But some might feel like, the breath work might get a little boring for
Right.
some.
Yeah.
So, I always feel like when I hyper focus on my breathing, then I can't breathe all of a sudden. And then as soon as I stop breathing, or stop thinking about breathing, I stop breathing. So that has always been a little weird for me, because I don't like hearing myself breathe. So whenever I think about it, then I can hear myself breathing, and then I don't know, it's weird. Like I don't want to hear myself breathing through my nose,
Okay.
So that one has also been a challenge for me, because hyper focusing on it actually makes it even more intrusive, I guess.
Yeah.
Because whenever I think about myself breathing, it's like my nostril sound is so loud that that's all I hear, I don't know.
But I think that's part of the point of it, is that you're concentrating on that sound of your breath.
Yeah, you mentioned listening for your intuition, to hear what your inner self is trying to tell you.
Right.
And I oftentimes, when I try to do that and, ask for a sign or ask for my intuition to speak up, I hear the refrigerator cut on, or the air conditioner, or the toot toot, and I'm like, really?
Right. Well, that's one of the hard things for me too.
Right.
Is,
like
even when I'm doing my morning thing, I try to tune out the sounds of the air conditioner and everything. But if my niece Ashley gets up and I hear her open her bedroom door and then close the bathroom door, it distracts me. But that's part of the practice. Part of the practice is being able to tell myself, you heard it. Thanks for noticing. Go back to where you were.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a lot of it, is just, thanking your mind for hearing that and then saying, let's go back to what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And because I believe that even the people who are masterful at meditation still hear those things. They're just not
dwelling on them.
They
or
don't dwell
having
on
an
them.
emotion
Yes.
about it, because you could be meditating and then get mad
that
about
you were
it.
interrupted.
Exactly.
Right. Or distracted by it. And that's the
Or
point.
mad
You
at
hear
yourself
it,
for being distracted.
you hear it, and you just continue as you're going. And it
Is
has
what
no
is.
effect on you.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, speaking of effect, now that you've been meditating in the morning pretty regularly, do you notice any changes in like your behavior?
Oh, absolutely. I feel a lot calmer. They've actually had studies that prove that it helps with stress and all those things. And I feel like I am a lot less stressed. And when I do start getting stressed, I go meditate, and it helps, stop that a little bit.
Mhm.
So I really do. And in addition to my morning meditations, I also do affirmations. I have a list of affirmations that I say every morning. So it's really a very uplifting, great way to start my day. And I feel like I'm more alert and awake in the morning than I was before. I'm not as grumpy before I've had my coffee like I was before.
Right.
Yeah, and like I said, it's very helpful with stress and stuff.
So I like to meditate on my break at work. We only get 10-minute breaks. We get 2 10-minute breaks. And I always joke with my employees. I say, do you want to know how you can get a 15-minute break? Which I know I'm not the one that makes the rule, so it's okay to joke about it, right? But I'll say, if you want to make your break really long, go meditate. Because if you sit down and meditate for just like 5 minutes, it feels like 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And then if you just meditate for 5 minutes and you still have 5 minutes to go and do whatever you want to do, get a snack and use a restroom and get some more coffee.
Uh-huh.
And I'm serious. Like, I feel like whenever I meditate on my break, it makes my break so much
Right,
longer. So I
right.
always try to meditate first, because if I go do the other things and then I come back, my break's already over. It
Right.
takes me 10 minutes to go and get my snack and go to the bathroom, and then my break's over.
Right.
So I always recommend that for my coworkers, because our job's kind of hectic, and you're just taking phone call after phone call. Even sometimes it's like escalated personalities. And I like it because it gives you a moment to step away and just clear your thoughts, calm down, especially if you just got off of like a really challenging phone
right.
call, or out of like a really tense meeting, or you're about to go into a meeting. I like to do that too. Even sometimes before like I have a meeting, I'll just kind of give myself a little woosah and just kind of like clear my thought, because even if it's just for like 1 minute of silence and with my eyes closed, I can turn off some of the senses.
Uh-huh.
Right? And I think that's kind of like what you're trying to achieve when you're meditating, is turning off the senses, right? Because you know that you can see better if you're not listening to loud music, right? Everyone does that in
Yeah,
the
because
car
you
when you're
can't-
driving.
you can't
turn the
concentrate.
radio down so you can concentrate on where you're going.
Right.
Right. And even there's some food experiment things where you go and eat in the dark, because the food, tasting the food without seeing it, has a different impact.
Well,
on
and
the
just
flavor.
like eating and watching TV at the same time, because you can't.
You are not
concent-
being mindful of eating or watching the show, because you're
Right.
diverting your attention to both.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that I like about meditating, is that, yes, you really can listen to yourself and pay attention if you are turning off some of the other senses. So if you're sitting really still, you're not really feeling
Right,
right?
right.
If you're relaxing things so much to
If
where
you're
your body feels
comfortable.
like it's
Yeah.
floating. And then, yeah, and you're comfortable, you're not in pain, right? Like the way I'm sitting, my legs a little tense, right? So that is going to be a piece of my brain is focused on pain, 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 right?
Right, right.
So sitting comfortably is really important to that. So sometimes I just lay down in my bed and do it instead of like trying to sit in a chair. But closing my eyes, I almost always have my eyes closed whenever I meditate.
I do too. I do too. Yeah.
Well, I find, just like the best way for me to meditate, well, like when I sit in the car before work, it's nice and quiet. I think like for me to like get away from all the distractions, I kind of have to be like away from all the distractions, really. If I'm alone in my car, I'm not really distracted by anything.
Yeah.
But I find it pretty hard sometimes to meditate at my house because I've got cats or whatever, there's a phone,
Yep.
whatever. It's just like all of this stuff trying to pull at my attention. When I was younger, I used to like go outside and sit on my car or sit on my dad's car and kind of lay on the hood and stare up at the stars and just kind of like let my mind drift. Or I would go in the backyard and lay on the trampoline and just kind of let my mind drift. I kind of wish now that I didn't live in the city to where I could just go out and stare at the stars.
Oh, yeah,
You have
yeah.
to drive like quite a bit to just be in the quiet to stare at the stars.
Yeah, I agree. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things too. Like when I go camping or go out in the country anytime
Just to sit in the quiet.
in the
yeah.
quiet.
Yeah, just sit in nature and sit in the quiet.
And that too is a form of meditation, as is prayer. I tell people this all the time. If you are in prayer, you are in meditation. It's what you're focusing on is just different than, like I said, sometimes people meditate to clear their mind. Sometimes they meditate to hear an answer from their inner self or to clear the air with their deity. That, there's many different ways to meditate, and they all count. So, do what works for you. Keep trying all the different ones, because if you haven't found one that works for you, keep trying other ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Absolutely. And there's a really great app that my counselor actually recommended. It's called Insight Timer.
Oh,
I
yeah.
may have
I've
mentioned
heard of
it
that
before.
one. Yes.
Yeah,
we've
my
talked about that.
counselor has also mentioned that
Oh,
one.
that's cool. I like it because there are those guided meditations. There's ones with just sound or music or singing bowls.
Mhm.
There's ones where it's not necessarily like a guided meditation where you're like walking through a forest or something like narrative. But sometimes they're just really good pep talks while you meditate.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like, take a deep breath and think about all the things that you're going to work on today that are very important to you and why are they important to you. And now exhale as you see yourself accomplishing those things. And
Mhm.
I really like those to start my day because sometimes I just need to remind myself, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it?
Right.
And the reason why it's called Insight Timer is because all of the pre-recorded meditations, and there are live ones as well, but they all have like a time, so you can tell it like, I want a 10-minute meditation, or I want one that's an hour or whatever. And then there's also an additional feature where you can create your own timer. So when I first started meditating, I would sit there with my eyes closed and try to, meditate in silence. And I would be like, okay, it's probably been 5 minutes. And then like, let me just check my phone so I can see because I have unrealistic expectations of how long time is.
Mm-hmm. Goes back to that same story of the
Yes. And this is just something in my daily life. I think something takes 5 minutes and it really takes like an hour, and things that I think take an hour only take 5 minutes. So this is just something that I deal with, in my normal life. And so, when I'm sitting there meditating and I think, 5 minutes has gone by, and I look down and it's only been like 15 seconds, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? So when I first started meditating, I wanted to meditate for 10 minutes. And this was because on the Miracle Morning, you do your 6 lifesavers, and one of those is to sit in silence. Well, for me, that was really hard to... How am I supposed to know that 10 minutes have gone by in silence when I'm thinking that 30 seconds takes 5 minutes? Mm-hmm. So on the timer, I created a meditation timer that was 10 minutes long, and a bell rang every minute or something like that. And then like at the halfway point, there was a sound. So I knew where I was in my meditation. And so I was able to do that for a really long time. And I got to the point where I didn't need that anymore. And then I started exploring some of the other things on there. And now I actually can literally just sit there and meditate, and I don't feel like I have to put a time limit expectation to what my meditation is to feel like I've accomplished a meditation. But at that time in my life, I needed something to feel like I was accomplishing it by setting parameters.
Right,
so
right.
I really liked that feature, and you can really customize what your meditation. There's a lot of different instruments and things that make sounds, or you can make it not make any sound until the very end, or you can have it play music or something like that as well. So I definitely recommend checking out that application.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I would probably be able to talk about meditation like all day long, and all of my random little experiences with meditating. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to put you to sleep or, meditate you to death. So what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're talking about categories of metaphysics.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that'll be fun.
We're just kind of talk about some things that fall into what we call metaphysics.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So we've kind of touched on some of those topics before, but
like tarot.
Yeah. And we've talked about palmistry.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about what is metaphysics and what other things fall into that, and maybe they'll generate some interest, and we can come up with some more topics to talk about. So
sounds
okay,
great.
Yeah,
well,
that
I'll
sounds good.
For sure, I'll show up.
I hope so. You're one of the co-hosts.
Right. She's going to skip out on that.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to thank all of our listeners. Definitely check out our Heard It on the podcast. We'll share the link for Insight Timer. Every episode we have Heard It on the podcast. I believe there's always something on there that...
Almost always. There's been one or two where we didn't have anything, but yeah, definitely check it out. So we would also love to hear from you. So if you'd like to give us some positive feedback or whatever kind of feedback that you have, hit us up at modernmusings.net. You can also catch us on MMC Chat on Facebook. Or if you really, really, really love us, please consider going to wherever you heard our podcast and giving us a rating, because those ratings will help other people also hear our podcast.
For sure. Yes, definitely do that.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.